Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we are in Bloodpine Woods, playing as the Empire against the Forces of Chaos led by Dav. So, unfortunately, I actually had a match right before this, just a few games before this one, where he completely smoked me. I was Bretonia, he was High Elves. One of my first losses in ages in that matchup. And unfortunately, I didn't think that it was a pretty disastrous loss. So I didn't really think it was worth casting. In retrospect, though, he actually basically used the build, and I'm going to try not to get too silent here, but basically used the build I was recommending before with Masked Dragon Princes, backed by some nobles, and it worked really effectively against my Bretonia. I had some bad micro and whatnot, and unfortunately, I'm really regretting not having saved that replay, but I have to take my word for it. Right before this matchup, he did completely smoke me as Bretonia. With High Elves, so it's doable. The Dragon Prince build definitely works, but more back to ground, back to ground here. Going in as Empire against the Force of Chaos, I did decide to go with a bit of a wide build. Decided to bring some Hammer of Witches action in case my opponent, or in case Dav here decided to run with the Hell Cannon. I wanted to have a tool to crack it, and otherwise, we're going pretty wide. For my Lord, I decided to bring Carl and try to do a little bit of a risky play here. No Lord of Lifecaster, so Carl with Golem Raz, so he can Lord Snipe at big targets. He's got Standing Around, Foe Seeker, hold the line, and of course then everything that's built in. Bright Wizard with Searing Bolts, as well as Cascading Fire Cloak, Kindle Flame, and Power Stone, so a whole bunch of abilities there. And then for our main line, we've got 4 units of Spearbend just to hold any infantry off, just to stall, just to buy time. 2 Greatswords to do some infantry cracking. And then Vanguarded forward, we do a single unit of Sterling's Revenge, and in the back, the Silver Bullets. The stock on these 2 units is, in my opinion, absolutely invaluable, and is incredibly useful to keep your opponent guessing and prevent them from prematurely positioning their units and getting good setups or good attacks on them. Finally, in the back, 2 Demigryph Knights, 1 normal Demigryph Halberd, 1 the Royal Altar Gryphites, of course, to dish out some major hurt to enemy large and provide me with a mobile cavalry contingent. Now Dav here did decide to deploy 3 Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes here in the center. These guys, of course, are, in my opinion, a pretty good choice against Empire. They can do quite a bit of poke damage. I don't actually have many shielded units. I actually might not have any shielded units. Yeah, I don't actually have any shielded units in this army. I didn't think about it in retrospect, but oh no, I never mind. I had some shielded spearmen. I forgot. I had a single unit of shielded spearmen, so yeah, great unit there. But these guys will do great damage against, say, Demigryph Knights. They're a great counter to great swords. They can charge into melee and deal with, say, Silver Bullets pretty effectively. And so obviously they're a pretty big threat. For the rest of this force, my opponent did bring some Chaos Warhounds with poison. I think there's 1 unit on either end. These guys, of course, once again, harass the backline. And then a very big infantry mob. Now this is a very wide infantry mob. Most of this is Chaos Marauders mixed in with a handful of Chosen. I think there might only be 2 units of Chosen. Yeah, 2 units of Chosen. I actually thought these were Chaos Warriors at first, and I didn't realize it, but yeah, these guys are Chosen. Pretty potent unit. I actually think they outtrade Greatswords in a straight-up fight, despite not being AP, so definitely got to watch out for them. And then 2 Chariots, once again, disrupt and run over my infantry line. Pretty cheap and bunker-busting tool. And then some Summoners of Rage here for the anti-large and armor-piercing. So once again, pretty powerful tool. These guys, especially with Chaos Warhounds, can trade really effectively with Demigryphs with Halberds. I don't know if they win. I'm not entirely sure which unit wins out in a straight-up fight, but with Hounds especially, they're very potent. And of course, Chain Lightning can be great against infantry. Finally, as a Lord choice, my opponent did decide to bring Sarthoriel with, actually some pretty cheap spells. So rather than going for any sort of fanciness, going in with Plague of Rust and Searing Tomb, both pretty solid spells against Empire. Especially if I bring Greatswords, it'll make Chosen a lot more effective. Chosen have monsters melee stats. Their one disadvantage is their lack of AP, so Plague of Rust against Greatswords drops them to 35, makes them a very, very weak target. Arcane Conduit, standard dice with the usual sort of spells, and of course Sarthoriel is basically invulnerable to my shooting. Now, fortunately here, a little bit of a sort of wagon fort here with my spearmen, just kind of defending the outskirts, just trying to zone out my opponent's light cav, while continuously pivoting the Silver Bullets and the Sterling's Revenge to be in position to counter my opponent's light cav. At the same time, the Hammer of Witches is basically putting a timer on this engagement, chipping away at the Marauder Horsemen. Probably might have been a good idea. Would have been for my opponent to pull back his Marauder Horsemen, get him out of range, keep him wait for the main engagement to start. But he most likely wants to shut down the Hammer of Witches here and keep it preoccupied. So unfortunately, that means that these Marauder Horsemen are definitely going to lay down quite a few lives here. And you can see already there's quite a lot of them here who've gotten knocked down by its pretty accurate shots. In the meantime, they're trying to find an opening with the Marauder Horsemen here. No losses so far, but they have taken a volley. One of the cool things about Marauder Horsemen is that they do have bronze shields. They do get a few kills here on the Spearmen, but honestly, this is something that just doesn't really bother me too much. As long as I can make them either waste their ammo or keep them away from my most important targets here. You can see I'm pulling the Demigryphs inward, partially to defend the Hammered Witches, but also partially to keep these Marauder Horsemen away. Make the Marauder Horsemen run a gauntlet essentially to get at my get good shots in, is pretty important here. So regardless, you can see over time the Hammered Witches here chipping away at the Marauder Horsemen. Finally, Dav decides to charge in, kind of committing them, perhaps just to shut down the Hammered Witches, realizing that he's not really going to be able to get at it, and just diving in. These guys do, of course, get quite a bit of leadership on the charge, but unfortunately there's a Bright Wizard here, there's Carl there, and we're going to be able to shut him down here, where my opponent does try to push in with the Chaos Warhounds. He's going to get intercepted by the Greatswords, who of course do bonus damage versus infantry. These guys count as infantry, and the Greatswords are going to absolutely dumpster them. In the meantime, the Marauder Horsemen are going to get slaughtered, making for the first chatter of the game. Unfortunately, these chariots actually didn't press the advantage, perhaps worried about the Demigryph Knights, and decide to hold, which is a big sort of saving grace for me. Over on the flank, in the meantime, the Marauder Horsemen getting chipped away at by these Silver Bullets, who are just raking in kills on these guys. Of course, with their superior range, they've definitely got an edge in this fight. In the meantime, over here, the Silver Bullets, there's Sterling's Revenge slaying out with the Marauder Horsemen. My opponent does charge in, but this I'm not entirely sure this favors. Sterling's Revenge has very solid melee stats, 34, 35, 28. So I'm pretty sure the Marauder Horsemen in a protracted fight are going to lose pretty badly. And you can see some of those guys still firing into the fray, and these guys just not having the time of their lives. They're just getting sniped down, and whenever they pull away for a cycle charge, they're going to be taking rear fire. In the meantime, on the periphery, we are kind of drawing up the lines at this point. You can see they're trying to get the guns turned around so they can shoot at the Dragon Ogres or the Summoners of Rage. And I'm pushing the infantry forward to absorb these charges, soak up these Chaos Marauders, and buy me time. You can see over here, Chaos Marauders slaying out with spears. A bit of an overcommitment here. I should have tried to pivot these spearmen out, make it a 1v1 over here so that I'd have the tools to shut down this Chaos Marauder, but unfortunately I did not. Meantime, though, my opponent is committing very heavily to the center fight with Sarthoriel, with the Chaos Chariots, so I'm countering with the Demigryph Knights, pushing him away. Well, up top, Carl Franz was over here helping to chase off these Marauder Horsemen, and although there's definitely some play here trying to shut down the Silver Bullets, we are getting quite a bit of value so far. We're able to kind of zone these troops away. Plague of Rust here doing some damage to the Greatswords. But, you know, the Hammered Witches doing some bloody work here. Hitting those Summoners of Rage. Standard isn't going to help them against that firepower of that magnitude. And so we're getting some good value. In the meantime, good old Carl diving in, doing some damage to the Chaos Trades. Bit of a mistake on my part, though. Really should have tried to keep him safe. But you can see the Summoners of Rage now more exposed, taking just a pounding. Nice little Searing Bolts coming down, or Burning Bolts coming down, as the Searing Doom drops down the Hammered Witches, both doing quite a bit of damage, and you can see Carl here does not want to be there, so I pop Foe Seeker and promptly start running away. However, in the pits, the Silver Bullets, with the help of the Demigryphs, are going to be able to force out the Marauder Horsemen. Sterling's Revenge here, still applying constant pressure to these guys, forcing them away, giving those volleys of pistol fire, and the Demigryph Knights here able to force off some of these Chaos Marauders, while damaging the Chosen quite a bit, so we're getting a bit of a good engagement there. And it's a constant fight around the guns, constantly trying to keep them up and constantly just trying to hold the line here. The Chaos Marauders are actually winning against the Greatswords here simply because there's been so much damage from the Chariots. Really good micro from my opponent, shutting them down. But here we are going to be able to pinch these Chosen and start to apply some good pressure. Try to kind of keep them tied down in place. These 3 spears, kind of an overcommitment here, just trying to time down. You can see the constant stream of cheap bombardments from both sides. I was trying to get a Burning Bolts here on the Chosen. Chosen, due to their high HP per model, are actually a little bit tankier against the Burning Bolts. We can quickly watch, they're at about 5,500, and it does actually drop them by about 2,000, so some pretty huge damage. This is what you really don't want to take as Chaos, is these sorts of bombardments. Anytime though, Sarthoriel, trying to be a little greedy here, is going to get intercepted. His Overcast does some self-damage, and all these guys are just going to have none of it, chasing down Sarthoriel, running him down, and kind of forcing him back with Carl, with the Demigryph Knights, and now the Summoners of Rage, who did try to commit in here, are actually going to get run down by the very angry Demigryphs. And Summoners of Rage, you know, well, they've got decent melee stats against that plus. I think it's a 25 bonus versus large on the Demigryphs. Yeah, 25. They're just getting destroyed, and of course Carl's in there. He's popped Golem Raz, so he's hitting like an absolute beast. The Marauders are not going to be a saving grace there, and although my opponent finally does take the Hammer of Witches offline, Sterling's Revenge still very much around kicking on 70 models. The Silver Bullets here, I think that's the Chain Lightning actually going down, just trying to shut them down for good. But you know, the Silver Bullets still have 40 models. The Chariots haven't really finished them off. The Free Company still on 60 or 50 models. Then here in the pits, things are looking pretty brutal. The Summoner's Rage down to 2 models. A little unfortunate that I didn't manage to wipe them out before they got that Chain Lightning, but nonetheless, they get slaughtered. And that is now giving me the complete mobility advantage. With the loss of those Dragon Ogres, I'm going to be able to start running amok. My opponent actually forgot his Warhounds in here, which has definitely been a bit of a saving grace this game. But now we are going to be able to start sort of picking off these Chaos Chariots. Carl Friend's going to dive in. He's going to be able to blow these guys up. You can see there, they're trying to pull away, but against Demigryphs, it's just not going to happen. Demigryphs are too much speed, too much mass. Actually, they don't have that much speed. I guess these guys have 78 mobility. It's pretty crazy. But regardless, we do manage to pick off the Chariots, make this unit completely shatter. And now things finally, I think, moved in my sort of in my direction. You can see the Sterling's Revenge quick enough to escape, the Silver Bullets quick enough to escape, and we are going to be able to start collapsing on these last pockets of Chaos Infantry. The Greatswords here holding very sturdily against the Chosen as well as the Greatswords. And now, between the Royal Fights and good old Carl, we're going to be able to try to sort of force Darth Royal down, try to be able to focus him. Continuously just trying to get at the chicken here, hit that Chaos Chicken in the bum. Only got 40 melee defense, so a pretty decent target. A 2-drop Cascading Fire Cloak there on Farrell, hoping to get some extra damage out of him, but unfortunately the chicken is just very much running away. But, you know, here in the pits, the Chosen are going to get surrounded, going to start taking a beating. And the Spears, in the meantime, will be able to bog these guys down. And as the shooting recovers, we still do have 30 Free Company, or 28 Free Company Militia. We still have 42 Silver Bullets, which is a huge firing line, which is going to now be able to really swing the tide and sort of slaughter these guys with some rear shots. Chosen here getting swamped. Their leadership finally does start to give in. Standard die going down, so very good sort of recovery there, but just barely keeping them afloat when they would have routed otherwise. But nonetheless, with the Demigryph Knights, with Halberds in there, with the Spears, with the Great Swords, still floats around kicking. Terror does kick in, and the Chosen are going to break. Carl actually getting focused pretty hard there by the chicken, but he is fighting back, and of course now with the Demigryphs charging in, it's going to be very bad for Darth Royal. So the last few seconds are basically spent murdering Darth Royal, and my opponent does GG out. So good game against Dav here. Like I said, he spoke to me in the previous one. Unfortunately, I didn't save that replay, and I really should have. And I was regretting it immediately after because that was a high alpha against Bretonnia, and it was a pretty bad whooping for me. But regardless, this was a much closer and much more engaging match, I felt. But the previous one was a bit more educational. Regardless, in this one, I did feel that you know, this is a decent build against Chaos. I feel that maybe I would have been better off not bringing the Hammer of Witches, just bring a generic cannon. I feel like it might have done me a better job. I could have cut some corners somewhere, maybe dropped some spears, got an extra unit of Greatswords in there. Not entirely sure how I would have done it, but definitely feel like I could have. The Hammer of Witches was kind of overkill for what it was doing. It got 25 kills. Most of those were against Marauder Horsemen, so it wasn't exactly doing an amazing job. And of course, Dav had Darth Royal in there, so I couldn't really do any Lord sniping. He was very good about shutting the unit down, so I wasn't really able to get much value against Chaos Chariots or anything like that, so that was a little unfortunate. For the rest of the build, you know, I was happy with the Bright Wizard. I basically always bring a Bright Wizard against Chaos. I think he's great. Burning Bolts is so good against Chosen. It's so good against Chaos Knights, against Chaos Warriors, against basically anything Chaos. It smushes it. It's a great equalizer. You know, the Spearman held, not much to say there. The Great Swords dishing out quite a bit of hurt. They're not a bad pick in this matchup. Definitely now they're cheaper. They're pretty good. Demigryph Knights also, obviously, a lot of stopping power, able to wrap up those Summoners of Rage, able to wrap up the Chaos Chariots, and the Silver Bullets and Sterling's Revenge. You know, they took on some pretty nasty units. They took on Marauder Horsemen. They took on, you know, some of the Marauders trying to pursue them, and they were able to dish out a lot of hurt over time. So definitely a pretty valuable unit. And yeah, I was pretty pleased with him. I might have to try some alternate abilities. I don't know if what I'm kind of curious about is if Fireball is a good counter to Hell Cannons. If it is, I might have to try that out. Definitely was not too happy with it. I feel like the Hammer of Witches is a bit of an overinvestment for a single purpose, essentially. Because in general, I prefer infantry or cavalry skirmishers to shut down Chaos, harass, or heavy units. But you know, it did some stuff. Regardless, good game to Dav here. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below if you have not already. If you have any comments, any criticism, any questions about the game, anything like that, be sure to share them and I will respond as soon as I'm able. As usual, guys, I do appreciate you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye for now.